I want to tell you a story about an island between Detroit and Canada known as Boblo.
The Boblo experience was the boat ride there.
Getting on a boat, giving a man your little ticket, and you on a boat, you having fun, you partying.
My sister Claire and I would take families by the thousands for a summer of fun.
It wasn't no white, no black, it was just everybody together. And that's what made it the Boblo Boat.
A new documentary sheds light on the history of an old amusement park, Detroit's Boblo Island, and the most popular way to get there, the Boblo Boats. Director Aaron Schillinger gives some insight on the new film.
So Boblo Boats, a Detroit Ferry Tale, is a feature-length documentary about the history and the current restoration efforts of the Boblo Boats that used to take people to Boblo Island, the amusement park in between Detroit and Canada. It took just about 7 years for me to produce. It features archival footage that was filmed on the island in like the 70s when they used to use 35mm cameras. And so we're going to be able to show this footage at 4K resolution. So it's really exciting for audiences to see this for the first time. It also features a lot of stop motion animation that we use to kind of bring back some of other people's fond memories of the park. Boblo Island as an amusement park closed down in 1993. And once the park closed down, the boats were kind of fell to ruin. But now that Detroit's having an economic resurgence of sorts, people are realizing that these are national historic treasures and they're trying to save them. When I was living in New York City, I was approached by a nonprofit to do a fundraising video for a steamboat. And I go out to film the boat and I see this giant rusting steamboat in dry dock in Toledo, Ohio. And my first thought was like, why don't you guys just build a new boat? But that nonprofit, the SS Columbia Project, was like, no, you really don't understand. You have to talk to some people who grew up going to Boblo Island on this amusement park. And I was like, okay. And so I start talking to people and all these fond memories just start flooding out of people's mouths. So a lot of people who went to Boblo Island thought there was only one boat, but there's actually two sister steamboats, the SS Columbia and St. Clair. So in 2015, SS Columbia was purchased by a New York nonprofit, and she's currently in Buffalo, New York, awaiting further funds for the restoration. And that kind of left St. Clair as Detroit's last vestige of Boblo Island. And she's owned by a doctor, and which is a little bit unconventional. And St. Clair is currently in the Detroit River. She's docked where a lot of people can see her. The film is narrated by Martha Reeves. You know, she's famous for Heat Wave and Dancing in the Streets. And we were really fortunate enough to get her. We chose to tell the story from the perspective of the steamship SS Columbia because, first of all, she's the oldest surviving passenger steamboat in America. And she kind of has this lore and mythology about her. And so we thought it'd be really interesting to make it a fairy tale told from the perspective of the steamboat.
I really wish we still had Boblo. It gives Detroiters something to do.
How can this be? How can we lose this, one of these great historic institutions?
You just can't get rid of this boat. Like, this is a part of history.
The film doesn't just focus on the restoration of the Boblo Boats and the nostalgic memories of rides to Boblo Island. It showcases an important but little-known Detroit story tied to America's civil rights movement.
There was a Supreme Court ruling about integration on the Boblo Boat that really did start to change history in America.
One of the most important parts of the Boblo Boats film is the story of civil rights pioneer Sarah Elizabeth Ray. A lot of people don't know that all amusement parks across America used to be segregated, and all of those parks have their own journey to integration. And in Detroit with Boblo Island, it was in 1945 when a young 23-year-old secretary named Sarah Elizabeth Ray was forcibly removed from the boat. And it's kind of incredible because she went straight to the NAACP and with the help of the NAACP sued the Boblo Company. And that case went all the way to the US Supreme Court where Thurgood Marshall ended up arguing her case. And after she won on the Supreme Court level, the NAACP actually used the Boblo case as a test case leading up to Brown versus Board of Education. So many people have incredibly fond memories of riding the Boblo boat to Boblo Island. And the film pays tribute to all of these really happy memories, but it also peels back the nostalgia to see what stories or characters might be hiding underneath. So that's everything from the past history of segregation and desegregation of Boblo, which a lot of people really never thought about the history of segregation, and the current efforts to save the steamboats themselves. Every now and then they pop up in the news, but we wanted to really kind of do a deeper dive into what it takes to save a Boblo boat. We were fortunate enough to release the film theatrically, and people can see it currently all over the state of Michigan.